let's start with cardiovascular embryology first. ठीक है, so cardiovascular system में let's first understand that by what time the heart starts beating. The heart starts beating by week 4 of development. Okay, so the heart will spontaneously start beating by 4th week of development. Now during heart formation, during heart embryogenesis, what happens is there is cardiac looping that will happen. So first of all, you have a heart tube, and this heart tube will loop on itself, and that will result in formation of the heart. So first you have a heart tube, and heart tube will loop over itself and will give rise to this looping will give rise to the left and right polarity. Now cardiac looping will begin by 4th week of development. Cardiac looping will start at 4th week of development. Okay, now if there is defect in the dynein protein, अगर आपका डाइनिन प्रोटीन में डिफेक्ट होगा, then what will happen? The left right polarity will not be established. So usually your heart is like that, right? Apex is on the left side and you have the right atrium here. So this is the left right normal polarity of the heart. But if there is a defect in dynein, what will happen? The left right polarity will not be established. Yes, very good, Abhishek. Dextrocardia will happen. ठीक है, dextrocardia or Carter-Jenner syndrome will happen. Okay, now let's understand cardiac looping के बाद क्या होता है. आपके chambers formation take place. Okay, so how are the atria formed? Now, in order to understand the formation of atria, just first focus at this. First, the septum primum will grow towards the endocardial cushion. So, in the first step is the septum primum will be formed. So, this is suppose your heart, and you have the endocardial cushions here. Then from here, your septum primum will start. Okay, so from here only septum primum will start. Okay, so right atrium, then left atrium, and you can see from here the septum primum is beginning to develop, and the septum primum will start to grow towards the endocardial cushion, and the hole which is there is ostium primum. And when the septum primum will grow towards the endocardial cushion, that will result in narrowing of the ostium primum. Okay, that will result in narrowing of the ostium primum. Next step, what will happen is ostium secundum will be formed. Okay, how is the ostium secundum formed? So this is the septum primum going towards the endocardial cushion. Okay, you have the ostium primum here between the endocardial cushions. This is endocardial cushion, and between the septum primum you have the ostium primum, and ostium primum के बीच में ही ऑस्टियम प्राइमम के बीच में ही यहाँ पे एक नैरो सी ओपनिंग बन रही है, दैट इज नोन एज ostium secundum. So ostium secundum is formed inside the septum primum. I hope you are understanding this. Okay, now next step is on the right side the septum secundum will start to develop. ठीक है, on the right side septum secundum will start to develop. So on the right side you'll see formation of septum secundum, and the ostium secundum will be formed. So septum secundum coming on the right side of the septum primum will cover the ostium secundum, and you will get the residual foramen which is known as foramen ovale. So there will be formation of foramen ovale, and this is known as the ostium secundum or the foramen ovale when the septum secundum will be formed. I hope you are understanding these things. ठीक है, in next step what will happen, the septum primum will close against the septum secundum and it will seal the foramen ovale, and finally the septum secundum and primum will fuse during the infancy or early childhood, and there will be formation of fossa ovalis in place of foramen ovale. So fossa ovalis is a remnant of the foramen ovale. Clear everyone? ठीक है, now what is Patent foramen ovale. What is patent foramen ovale? Can anyone tell me what is patent foramen ovale? Now, if septum primum as well as septum secundum, they do not fuse. लास्ट स्टेप जो हो रहा था ना, जब आपका सेप्टम सेकेंडम और सेप्टम प्राइमम फ्यूज कर रहा था, तो सेप्टम प्राइमम और सेप्टम सेकेंडम अगर फ्यूज नहीं करेगा, दैट विल रिजल्ट इन पेटेंट फोरामेन ओवेल. पेटेंट फोरामेन ओवेल. And this patent foramen ovale, what will happen is right atria और लेफ्ट एट्रिया के बीच में एक कनेक्शन रह जाएगा एंड दैट कैन लीड टू पैराडॉक्सिकल एम्बोलाई. व्हाट इज पैराडॉक्सिकल एम्बोलाई? पैराडॉक्सिकल एम्बोलाई विल बी फ्रॉम राइट साइड द venous thromboemboli will go to the left side and will enter the systemic arterial circulation. Okay, so right to left shunting happens in case of patent foramen ovale. Okay, so good evening Pratik. I hope the embryology part is clear. Embryology part is clear. Okay, see, this is wrong. You people are going from the class. Please try to attend the class live. uh, in the starting I saw so many students were there, but now they are, most of the students with online classes, they feel like okay, they will attend the classes later on, but this is now not how it works. You should attend the whole class. You should watch the whole live class and you should stay with me here. Then only the learning will happen. Then only you will be able to understand these things. So, this is patent foramen ovale and this is how the septation of the chambers occur. I'll just show you an image to show how the formation of your different chambers of the heart is occurring. ठीक है, look at this image. So what is happening? पहले आपका septum primum यहाँ पे form हो रहा है. Septum primum, when it is fusing with the endocardial cushion, at that time you have a foramen known as ostium primum being formed. Now in the septum primum itself, एक और foramen बन रहा है, that is ostium secundum. So now you have two foramen, that is ostium secundum and ostium primum, and you just have one septum, that is septum primum. फिर right side पे there is development of septum secundum, and when septum secundum will be formed, there is formation of ostium secundum. And then what will happen? So the septum secundum will grow downwards. So this is ostium secundum, also known as foramen ovale. Okay, ostium secundum also known as foramen ovale. And finally these septum primum as well as septum secundum will fuse and the foramen ovale will close. So this is the formation of interatrial septum and this is the formation how the foramen ovale will be formed and how it will close later on in life. That is the problem. अगर ये दोनों फ्यूज ना कर पाए, दैट इज सेप्टम प्राइमम एंड सेप्टम सेकेंडम अगर फ्यूज नहीं हो पाते हैं, दैट विल रिजल्ट इन पेटेंट फोरामेन ओवेल. आई होप आई एम क्लियर. ठीक है, now let me just show you the next figure that will show you how the heart development actually takes place. So look at this figure. So this is 22 days of 22 days of intrauterine life. So now the heart is in the form of tube. You have the first aortic arch, you have the bulbus cordis, you have the cardiac veins, and you have the sinus horns. Okay. Now what will happen? The cardiac looping will happen, and cardiac looping will result in the polarity of the heart. So look at this. From first aortic arch, the aortic roots are formed. Bulbus cordis is there. Then there is formation of truncus arteriosus. Then we have the ventricles, right? Then we have the atrium. We have the sinus venosus. Okay. And look at this. There is a covering of the heart also being formed. That is pericardium. The the truncus arteriosus part here, and then you have this part is primitive left atrium. So primitive left atrium is being formed from the atrium. Okay, primitive left atrium is being formed from the atrium, and the SVC as well as your IVC are being formed from the sinus venosus. Then look at this. This is your left ventricle. This is the left ventricle, and from here the ventricles will be formed. So complete development of the heart is happening at 50 days. Okay, so this is the development of heart. So this is the chest x-ray showing you the normal, this is the normal chest x-ray, and showing you, you know, the it is showing you the heart anatomy, right? Look at this. So this part is SVC. This is azygous vein here. Then here you have the IVC. This is right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Behind, okay, I will just show you. Okay. So can you see through this chest X-ray? The vertebral line is this one and the aortic line is this one. Okay. So this is the aortic line. So itna part जो दिख रहा है chest X-ray में, that is descending thoracic aorta. Okay. This is aortic knob. This is pulmonary artery. So you need to know the different parts which you are able to see in the chest X-ray. Yes, the limbus fossa ovalis is the remnant of foramen ovale only. Limbus fossa ovalis is the remnant of foramen ovale when it will properly close. Okay. Okay, look at this. So you have the fibrous pericardium, then you have the parietal pericardium, the pericardial space, epicardium. Okay, visceral pericardium, it is also known as visceral pericardium or epicardium. So you have three layers, right? Fibrous pericardium, parietal pericardium, and in between the parietal pericardium as well as the visceral pericardium, you have the pericardial space. And inside the epicardium, you have these vessels which are the coronary vessels, and this is myocardium and the endocardium part. Okay, this image is showing you the blood supply of the heart. So the blood supply of the heart, you can look, right? So anterior, this is anterior view and this is the posterior view. Okay. So SVC and aorta, here you can see the left circumflex artery, giving rise to your left anterior descending artery. Okay. Left coronary artery giving rise to left anterior descending artery and the left circumflex artery. Okay. This is the marginal artery. This one is the posterior descending artery. So you can see posterior descending artery is the branch of right coronary artery. Now look at this. This is right coronary artery, and right coronary artery is giving rise to anterior marginal artery. The right coronary artery is only giving rise to your posterior descending artery. Okay? And these you can see are the different areas on auscultation of the heart. So the aortic area. This one is the aortic area where you get to listen the systolic murmurs, that is murmurs of aortic stenosis, flow murmur and aortic valve sclerosis. This one is the tricuspid area. Okay, let me show you. So this is tricuspid area where the tricuspid valve abnormalities will be auscultated. So in tricuspid area, you can auscultate the tricuspid regurgitation murmur, ventricular septal defect, as well as the diastolic murmur in case of tricuspid stenosis. This one is the mitral area where you can, mitral area is at the apex of the heart and you can auscultate the mitral regurgitation murmur, mitral valve prolapse and mitral stenosis. Then this one is the left sternal border. In the left sternal border, you can auscultate high HOCM murmur and aortic regurgitation and pulmonic regurgitation murmur. And finally, you have the pulmonic area. So pulmonic area mein you can auscultate the pulmonic stenosis murmur, ASD murmur and flow murmur, which are all systolic ejection murmur. So this is the diagram showing you the different auscultatory areas and the different murmurs which you can auscultate. Okay. I hope I am clear. Okay. Now, let's just move to the different murmurs. Okay, let's just look at the different murmurs and how do they sound like. So this is aortic stenosis murmur. I'll come to the part of aortic stenosis and everything. So heart murmurs, let's just revise. So aortic stenosis murmur is heard between S1 and S2 and it is a crescendo decrescendo ejection murmur. Okay, the aortic stenosis murmur is a crescendo decrescendo. Okay, it is a crescendo decrescendo ejection murmur. And it is loudest heard at the heart base. The aortic stenosis murmur will radiate to the carotids. It will radiate to the carotids. Okay, and it is also known as pulsus In aortic stenosis, you get pulsus parvus et tardus. So, what is pulsus parvus et tardus seen in aortic stenosis? So, pulsus parvus et tardus is weak pulse with delayed peak. Weak pulse with delayed peak is pulsus parvus et tardus, which is a characteristic of aortic stenosis. Okay. So, aortic stenosis is generally a problem seen in older patients and it happens due to calcification. In the younger patients, it most commonly happens due to early onset calcification of the bicuspid aortic valve. Otherwise, aortic stenosis is generally seen in older patients. Okay, so aortic stenosis को diagnose करने के लिए you can remember the mnemonic SAT, that is can lead to syncope. Aortic stenosis can lead to dyspnea or it can lead to exertion. Mitral or tricuspid regurgitation murmur. The mitral or tricuspid regurgitation murmur you can see is a holosystolic murmur. It is a holosystolic high pitched blowing murmur. Okay, it is a holosystolic high pitched blowing murmur. It is a holosystolic high pitched blowing murmur. The mitral regurgitation murmur is loudest heard at the apex region and it radiates towards the axilla. And the tricuspid regurgitation murmur is loudest heard at the tricuspid area. Okay. Now, mitral regurgitation often happens after ischemic heart diseases, your mitral valve prolapse or left ventricular dilatation. And tricuspid regurgitation, when does it happen? So, tricuspid regurgitation happens when there is right ventricular dilatation. Okay. I hope you are understanding. Next one is mitral valve prolapse. Mitral valve prolapse murmur is a late crescendo murmur. It is a late crescendo murmur. And it will have a mid systolic click. Mitral valve prolapse murmur is a late crescendo murmur with mid systolic click that occurs after the carotid pulse. This one is also best heard at the apex region and it is loudest just before the S2. ECG, yes, ECG also we will cover. Don't worry about that. Right now, I am taking all the murmurs together. All the murmurs I am taking together, right? So, mitral valve prolapse murmur is a late crescendo murmur. Crescendo murmur का मतलब क्या है? देखो ये धीरे धीरे इंटेंसिटी में इंक्रीज हो रही है and it is best heard at the apex region and it is loudest heard just before the S2 है ना S2 के पहले ही मिल रही है and it has a mid systolic click. Mitral valve prolapse murmur. Now, mitral valve prolapse is usually a benign condition but can develop after your rheumatic fever, can develop after chordae rupture or can develop after myxomatous degeneration of the mitral valve. Next one, ventricular septal defect. So, ventricular septal defect murmur will be a holosystolic murmur. It will be a holosystolic murmur. The murmur will be harsh sounding murmur. And the ventricular septal defect murmur will be loudest heard in the tricuspid area. Tricuspid area. Okay? So, VSD is a congenital problem. The larger the VSD, the lower intensity of the murmur, that you have to remember. Larger VSD, low intensity of murmur. Clear everyone? Okay, so these are the different murmurs you get. Now look at this aortic regurgitation murmur. Aortic regurgitation is a murmur which is heard in the diastolic phase. Okay. Aortic regurgitation as well as the mitral stenosis murmurs are heard in the diastolic phase. The aortic stenosis murmur, the mitral regurgitation or mitral tricuspid murmur, the mitral valve prolapse murmur as well as VSD murmurs, these are heard in the systolic phase. So these are all systolic murmurs. Now coming to diastolic murmur mein the first one is the aortic regurgitation murmur. Okay, now aortic regurgitation murmur is a early diastolic murmur. It is a early diastolic murmur having a decrescendo pattern. So what do you understand by decrescendo? First it was increasing in intensity and then it is decreasing. So this is decrescendo high pitched blowing murmur. So again blowing murmur. Okay, and it is best heard where? Where is aortic regurgitation murmur heard? Mid systolic में aortic stenosis. See, aortic stenosis murmur is this one, na, crescendo, decrescendo murmur. So it is heard throughout your systolic phase, but it is having a crescendo, decrescendo pattern. पहले वो intensity में increase होगी and then decrease होगी. Okay, so this is crescendo, decrescendo pattern. And this aortic stenosis murmur will radiate to the carotids. Aortic stenosis murmur, so aortic stenosis के साथ the condition which is associated is pulsus parvus et tardus. Pulsus parvus et tardus. Look at this aortic regurgitation. Aortic regurgitation murmur. So aortic regurgitation, early diastolic murmur. It is decrescendo murmur, high pitched murmur, and it is best heard where? It is best heard at the aortic root. So it is best heard at the base of the heart. It is best heard at the base of the heart, and it is heard due to aortic root dilatation or the left sternal border in case of valvular disease. So what are the causes of aortic regurgitation? The causes of aortic regurgitation include Bayer, that is bicuspid aortic valve. Then you have the endocarditis, you have aortic root dilatation and rheumatic fever. These are the causes of aortic regurgitation. Next, look at the mitral stenosis murmur. The mitral stenosis murmur will be heard after opening snap. Okay, mitral stenosis murmur will be heard after opening snap, and it has a delayed rumbling mid to late systolic pattern. So delayed rumbling, late to mid systolic pattern. And finally, we have the PDA murmur. The PDA murmur is a continuous machine-like murmur. So PDA murmur is a continuous machine-like murmur. Clear, everyone? This is a continuous machine-like murmur. It is best heard in the infraclavicular area and loudest at S2. Clear? Okay. So this image is showing you the conduction system of the heart. So you can see the electrical impulses are traveling from sinoatrial node. Sinoatrial node say they are going to the atrioventricular valve. Atrioventricular valve say going downwards. The atrioventricular valve is giving rise to, so look at this, the location of the sinoatrial node as well as the AV node. So the sinoatrial node, it is located near the SVC. And the atrioventricular node, you can see, is located in the right atrium, the inferior part of the right atrium, right? And near the AV node, you have the coronary sinus orifice also. So look at the impulses, how they are traveling. So you have SA node. SA node say the current will travel towards the AV node. Okay. Then from AV node, it will go down towards the bundle of His. Then from bundle of His, the bundle of His will divide into the left branch and the right branch. So this is the right branch finally giving rise to the Purkinje fibers, and this left branch, so left branch giving rise to the Purkinje fibers again. You have the left anterior fascicle, you have a separate bundle that is known as Bachmann bundle, that is carrying fibers from the SA node to the left atrium. So that your left atria as well as the right atria, they work in a synchronized manner. I hope this is clear. Okay. So let's just see the depolarization as well as repolarization that happens in the ECG. Now look at this image. जब आपका SA node और इतना part आपका जब activate हो रहा है, so this is there. So you can see atrial depolarization happening here. Okay. Now when the impulses are coming to the bundle of His, so bundle of His excitation is responsible for this part. Then finally you have the ventricular depolarization when the impulses will travel down the bundle of His in the left bundle branch and the right bundle branch as well as through the Purkinje fibers. Then you have ventricular depolarization. फिर उसके बाद आता है J point, and here you can see this is the ST segment. Okay, ST segment. Then you have the T wave. So T wave will arise when the impulses will spread in the walls of the heart. So T wave, and finally the U wave. So this is the ventricular repolarization. So this is the normal ECG. Okay, normal ECG. Look at this: atrial depolarization, ventricular depolarization, followed by ventricular repolarization. Okay, so you have PR interval, you have QRS interval, you have QT interval, right? These are the different intervals you have to remember. You have two important segment, that is PR segment as well as the ST segment. Clear? Okay. So this is how the blood is flowing inside the heart. So from SVC, the blood is coming in the right atrium. From right atrium, it is going upwards, right? So from right atrium, then right atrium, it is going down to the right ventricle. From right ventricle, going up in the pulmonary artery, right? Okay, this is separate. So this looks like transposition of arteries. This is transposition of arteries. We'll come to that later on. These are all congenital abnormalities. So this is patent ductus arteriosus. We'll come to that one by one. Okay. So that was about, the general overview of the heart that I wanted to tell you. So the formation of foramen ovale and all we have covered. Now let's just understand the development of the ventricles. Okay. So let's understand the development of the ventricles. ठीक है, वेंट्रिकल्स के बीच में एक सेप्टम बनता है, दैट इज नोन एज द इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम. नाउ इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम, द मस्कुलर इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम, the muscular part of the interventricular septum as a opening that is known as interventricular foramen. Okay, the aorticopulmonary septum is formed, and aorticopulmonary septum is formed between the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and the aorticopulmonary septum will rotate and fuse with the muscular ventricular septum to form the membranous interventricular septum. So you have the muscular part of the interventricular septum, and above the muscular part of the interventricular septum you have the aorticopulmonary septum. अब ये aorticopulmonary septum और जो muscular part है interventricular septum का, ये दोनों के बीच में एक सेप्टम बनता है, दैट इज द मेम्ब्रेनस पार्ट ऑफ द इंटरवेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम. Okay, and the endocardial cushions, what is the function of endocardial cushion? Endocardial cushions will separate the atria as well as the ventricles. Okay, so let's now understand VSD. So VSD is the most common congenital cardiac anomaly, and the most common location of the VSD is the membranous septum. Okay, most common location of VSD is membranous septum. Clear? Okay. So now we will move towards the heart sound. So look at this image. Look at this image. So first of all, what will happen? The atrias will contract. Okay. So atrias, when they will contract, the atrial systolic phase will be there. Atrias contract karenge, they will push the blood. Atrial systolic phase will result in 30% of the ventricular filling. Okay. After the atrias will contract, the mitral as well as tricuspid valve will close. So after atrial systole phase, you have the S1 heart sound, and that is heard due to mitral as well as tricuspid valve closure. Okay. Then what will happen? The mitral as well as tricuspid valves are closed. The aortic as well as the pulmonic valve is also closed. So this is isovolumetric contraction phase. और आइसोवॉल्यूमेट्रिक कॉन्ट्रैक्शन फेज के बाद क्या होगा? द प्रेशर इनसाइड द वेंट्रिकल्स विल इंक्रीज एंड द वेंट्रिकल्स विल इजेक्ट द ब्लड आउटसाइड थ्रू द aorta and the pulmonary artery. This is a phase of ventricular systole. So that will result in ejection click. A2 and P2 valves will open. And then you have, when A2 and P2 valves will open, the ventricles जो है वो empty हो जाएंगे. Ventricles empty होने के बाद what will happen? Again, the pressure inside the atria as well as ventricles will decrease. The mitral valve, pulmonic valve are closed. This is a phase of isovolumetric relaxation. At this time, S2 will be heard when A2 and P2 valves will get closed. So, reason of S2 is A2 P2 closure. Reason of S1 is M1 T1 closure. Okay. Now, after isovolumetric relaxation phase, what will happen? The rapid ventricular filling will happen, that is 70%. Okay, and opening snap will be heard. Opening snap due to opening of the M1 and T1 will be heard. So now look at this. This is S1. S1 is heard when M1 and T1 are getting closed. So S1, after S1 you hear ejection click. Ejection click is heard due to the opening of the aortic as well as the pulmonic valve. And after S2 you have opening snap. Opening snap is heard due to M1 T1 opening, then followed by your Okay, when the heart is not able to pump the blood, the failure of heart to pump the blood will result in congestive heart failure. So what are the risk factors for congestive heart failure? It is coronary artery disease, hypertension, cardiomyopathy, valvular heart disease, diabetes, and COPD. These are the risk factors. And you have NYHA grading for congestive heart disease. NYHA grading is used to NYHA grading will be used to tell the severity of the congestive heart disease, in order to differentiate between left sided and right sided failure, and in order to differentiate between systolic versus non systolic failure. So, NYHA grading is used to decide the severity of congestive heart failure. So, NYHA grade 1 is no limitation of activity or no symptoms with normal activity. NYHA grade 2 is slight limitation of activity, comfortable at rest with mild exertion. NYHA grade 3 is marked limitation of activity, comfortable only at rest. And NYHA grade 4 is any physical activity that will result in discomfort and symptoms are present at rest. So these are NYHA grading for congestive heart failure. Coming to systolic heart failure. Systolic heart failure is heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, generally seen in less than 65 years of age. And will be characterized by systolic heart failure will be characterized by failure of the heart during the systolic phase. So, heart failure with reduced ejection fraction, it will come under systolic heart failure. What are the different causes of systolic heart failure? Anyone? So, systolic heart failure causes include dilated cardiomyopathy, valvular heart disease, MI and S3 gallop, and pulmonary congestion and cardiomegaly will happen during systolic heart failure. And you get Q waves and reduced ejection fraction, that is less than 40% in case of systolic heart failure. Coming to diastolic heart failure is also known as heart failure with preserved ejection fraction. Seen in more than 65 years, the causes of diastolic heart failure include restricted cardiomyopathy, HOCM, renal disease, hypertension, S4 gallop, pulmonary congestion, left ventricular. It is Diastolic heart failure is generally the left ventricular heart failure, normal or preserved ejection fraction more than 55% in case of diastolic heart failure. Okay. So now we will understand. Let me just, move to the images, and now we will look at the different, congenital heart anomalies, and what are the different congenital heart anomalies, and how do you, actually get to differentiate between these congenital heart anomalies. So congenital heart diseases, they are uh, classified into diseases with right to left shunting, and there are, the diseases, there are cyanotic heart diseases and your acyanotic, left to right shunt diseases and right to left shunt diseases. So right to left shunt diseases, they will present with cyanosis. Okay, so let's just understand the right to left shunt heart diseases. Okay, this is the right side of the heart and this is the left side of the heart. So shunting is happening here. So deoxygenated blood getting in the oxygenated blood, that will result in cyanosis. So in right to left shunt, you will get blue babies. This is often diagnosed prenatally or it becomes evident immediately after birth. And right to left shunting will require urgent surgical treatment. So right to left shunt in which cyanosis is there, you need urgent surgical treatment and maintenance of PDA. Now the five T's will come under right to left shunting. What are the 5 T's that will come under right to left shunting? That is truncus arteriosus, transposition of great arteries, tricuspid atresia, teratology of Fallot, and TAPVR. Okay, so 5 T's that come under congenital heart diseases include truncus arteriosus, transposition of great arteries. Then you have tricuspid atresia. You have teratology of Fallot, and you have TAPVR that will come under your cyanotic heart diseases or right to left shunting diseases. Okay, so one by one, we will first learn about the right to left shunt diseases. So, first one is persistent truncus arteriosus. Persistent truncus arteriosus. Okay, so you all know that truncus arteriosus was dividing into the pulmonary trunk as well as the aorta. Now, if truncus arteriosus will not divide into pulmonary trunk and aorta due to failure of the aortopulmonary septum formation, that is persistent truncus arteriosus. And most patients of persistent truncus arteriosus have accompanying VSD. Next one is the transposition of great arteries. So this is the image that is showing you transposition of great arteries. So you can see aorta is on the right side and this is the pulmonary artery. So this is pulmonary artery and this is aorta. So this is aorta carrying the deoxygenated blood and pulmonary artery carrying the oxygenated blood. What is this? This is transposition of great arteries. Transposition of great arteries. So let's understand how does transposition of great arteries happen. Aorta will leave the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk will leave the left ventricle. So aorta will leave the right ventricle and pulmonary trunk will leave the left ventricle. So usually the aorta is usually in the normal heart, aorta arises from where? In the normal heart, the aorta arises from your left ventricle. So if the aorta is arising from the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk is arising from the left ventricle, so what will happen? There will be separation of systemic and the pulmonary circulation. This transposition of arteries is not compatible with life. This is not compatible with life. Okay, and until and unless you create an artificial shunt in the patient, that is VSD, PDA or patent foramen ovale, the transposition of great arteries is not compatible with life. Okay, so there is failure of aorticopulmonary septum to actually spiral, and in transposition of great arteries you will see on x-ray what will be the finding. On x-ray you will get egg on string appearance. So why there is a egg on string appearance in case of in case of transposition of great artery on x-ray? Because the superior mediastinum will become narrow and that will give rise to egg on string appearance. So what is this? This is teratology of Fallot. This is teratology of Fallot, characterized by 4 things, that is the pulmonary stenosis, right ventricular hypertrophy, overriding of the aorta and ventricular septal defect. So this is teratology of Fallot, characterized by 4 things, that is pulmonary infundibular stenosis, which is the most important determinant for prognosis. Next one is right ventricular hypertrophy. That will give rise to boot-shaped heart. So this is the right ventricular hypertrophy that is happening, right? And overriding of aorta, and finally the VSD. These are the 4 things you get in teratology of Fallot. Now, in teratology of Fallot, what is there? There is anterior-superior displacement of the infundibular septum. Anterior-superior displacement of the infundibular septum, most common cause of early childhood cyanosis. Teratology of Fallot is the most common cause of early childhood cyanosis. Okay. Now, pulmonary stenosis. Since this is pulmonary stenosis में क्या हुआ है? आपकी pulmonary artery बहुत ही narrow हो गई है. Now, pulmonary stenosis will force right to left flow. Okay, so right यहाँ पे narrowing हो गई है, तो blood will try to go from the right side towards the left side. So pulmonary stenosis will force the right to left flow across the VSD, and this is resulting in the right ventricular hypertrophy. And when the blood will flow, whenever whenever there will be crying, whenever there will be fever, and whenever there will be the child will do exercise, what will happen? The pulmonary lumen will narrow more, and that will result in TET spells. That is known as TET spells. So increase in cyanosis during crying, during fever, during exercise due to exacerbation of the right ventricular outflow obstruction is known as TET spells. TET spells is a characteristic of teratology of Fallot. Okay, so squatting will improve cyanosis. Please remember that squatting will improve cyanosis. The teratology of Fallot is associated with 22q11 syndrome. 22q11 syndrome. Another one, that is Epstein anomaly. What happens in Epstein anomaly? Okay, this is boot-shaped heart in teratology of Fallot. The next one is ASD. Okay, we'll come to ASD also. but let's first complete the right to left shunt disorders. So what happens in Epstein anomaly? In case of Epstein anomaly, there is displacement of the tricuspid valve leaflets downwards in the left right ventricle. ठीक है, एप्स्टीन अनोमली में जो आपके ट्राइकस्पिड वाल्व लीफलेट्स होते हैं, दे गेट डिस्प्लेस्ड डाउनवर्ड्स इनसाइड द राइट वेंट्रिकल. So what will happen? There will be atrialization of the ventricle. There will be atrialization of the ventricle. So that is Epstein anomaly. Epstein anomaly is associated with tricuspid regurgitation. It is associated with accessory conduction pathways, right-sided heart failure. And Epstein anomaly ka one important cause is lithium exposure in utero. Lithium exposure in utero. One important cause of Epstein anomaly is lithium exposure in utero. Next, we will learn about the congenital heart diseases that result in left to right shunts. Let's understand left to right shunts. Left to right shunt causes are ventricular septal defects, atrial septal defects, the patent ductus arteriosus, and Eisenmenger syndrome. Okay, let's first read about the ventricular septal defect. Ventricular septal defect. सो वेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टल डिफेक्ट में प्रॉब्लम कहाँ होगी? आपका जो मेम्ब्रेनस पार्ट होगा वेंट्रिकुलर सेप्टम में, वहां पे प्रॉब्लम होगी. सो व्हाट विल हैपन, जो लेफ्ट साइड पे प्रेशर ज्यादा है, सो लेफ्ट साइड से ब्लड आपका राइट साइड पे आने लगेगा. ओके, सो लेफ्ट टू राइट शंटिंग विल हैपन. Ventricular septal defect are asymptomatic at birth, but they can manifest later in life. The most smaller ventricular septal defect, they resolve by their own, and if they are surgically untreated, they can result in increase in pulmonary blood flow and left ventricular overload that will progress to heart failure. Okay, so VSD can cause heart failure. Ventricular septal defect में oxygen saturation will increase inside the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. I hope you are understanding that. I hope you are understanding. So VSD you are understanding. In VSD you are getting left to right shunt. Now what is ASD? What is ASD? This image is showing you ASD. In ASD there is defect in the interatrial septum. There is problem with the interatrial septum. Okay, VSD की एक करेक्टरिस्टिक होती है वाइड एंड फिक्स्ड स्प्लिट S2. Wide and fixed split S2. So ASD develops due to defect in ostium secundum. Ostium secundum defects are most common type of ASD, and usually they are the isolated findings. I just showed you what is ostium secundum. I just showed you what is ostium primum, and different ASDs I have showed you. Symptoms range from either the patient can be asymptomatic or the patient can come with heart failure. Okay, so ASD is associated with Down syndrome, that you have to remember, and since right side of the heart is connected to the left side of the heart, then ASD can result in paradoxical emboli also. ASD can result in paradoxical emboli. Okay. So next one is patent ductus arteriosus. Let's understand what is patent ductus arteriosus. What is patent ductus arteriosus? So in between the aorta, so look at this, aorta और pulmonary artery के बीच में connection form हो रहा है, patent ductus arteriosus, right? So in fetal period, the shunt is right to left. That is normal. Okay, so from the pulmonary artery the blood will go in the fetal period. What will happen, ये PDA जो है that will allow the blood flow from the pulmonary artery towards the aorta. So in fetal period the shunt is right to left, that is normal. In neonatal period what will happen, when the birth of the baby will happen, crying will happen, the pulmonary vascular resistance will decrease, and when the pulmonary vascular resistance will decrease, the shunt will become left to right after birth, and due to that on towards the right side of the heart there will be increased amount of blood that will be coming on the right side of the heart, right? So the shunt will become left to right, that will result in progressive right ventricular hypertrophy and the left ventricular hypertrophy and heart failure. Patent ductus arteriosus is associated with a continuous machine like murmur. So in PDA you get a continuous machine like murmur. The patency of ductus arteriosus is maintained by PGE synthesis. Patency is maintained by PGE synthesis. If PDA is not corrected, it can lead to late cyanosis in the lower extremities, that is known as differential cyanosis. Okay, so if PDA is not corrected on time, it can result in late cyanosis in the lower extremities, that is known as differential cyanosis. So PDA is normal. The PDA baby will be normal in utero, and normally the PDA closes after birth. But if PDA will not close, so that will result in patent ductus arteriosus, giving rise to right ventricular hypertrophy, continuous machine-like murmur, and can result in differential cyanosis. Okay, so this next image is showing you Eisenmenger syndrome. What is Eisenmenger syndrome? Eisenmenger syndrome. So, if left to right shunting is not corrected, if left to right shunting is not corrected on time, so what will happen? So right side में blood flow ज़्यादा आएगा, pulmonary blood flow बढ़ जाएगा, pulmonary blood flow बढ़ेगा, तो there will be pathological remodeling of the pulmonary architecture, and that will result in pulmonary arterial hypertension, and pulmonary arterial hypertension will in turn result in right ventricular hypertrophy, and right ventricular hypertrophy will occur in order to compensate the right the right ventricular hypertrophy will occur, and that will result in the shunt getting reversed. Now the shunt will become right to left. Okay, the right ventricular pressure will increase as compared to the left ventricular pressure. So causes of Eisenmenger syndrome. So causes of Eisenmenger syndrome are uncorrected left to right shunting, that is VSD, ASD or PDA. The causes are uncorrected left to right shunting. Okay, so Eisenmenger syndrome will result in late cyanosis, clubbing, and polycythemia. Age of onset of Eisenmenger syndrome will vary depending on the size and severity of the initial left to right shunt. Okay, so this is your Eisenmenger syndrome. What is this? This is coarctation of aorta. What is coarctation of aorta? Coarctation of aorta is characterized by narrowing of the aorta. So there is narrowing of the aorta. Okay, narrowing of the aorta, and this generally happens near the insertion of the ductus arteriosus. So the coarctation of aorta, most common position if it is asked. So narrowing of the aorta, most common position if it is asked, it is juxtaductal. Juxtaductal. And coarctation of aorta is associated with bicuspid aortic valve and other heart defects and Turner syndrome. So coarctation of aorta is associated with bicuspid aortic valve and Turner syndrome. In coarctation of aorta, क्योंकि narrowing हो रही है ना aorta की, so what will happen? The blood pressure in the upper limbs will increase. So hypertension in the upper extremities and lower extremities will have weak and delayed pulses. So brachiofemoral delay is a characteristic of coarctation of aorta. And due to coarctation of aorta, in order to compensate, there will be with age the intercostal arteries will enlarge, and when intercostal arteries will enlarge, they will erode the ribs, resulting in notched appearance on x-ray. So notched ribs you get in coarctation of aorta. The complications of coarctation of aorta are heart failure, increase in cerebral hemorrhage, aortic rupture, and possible infective endocarditis. Okay, so let's look at the next image. What is this image showing you? This image is showing you the string of bead appearance, which is seen in case of fibromuscular dysplasia. This is seen in case of fibromuscular dysplasia. Seen in case of fibromuscular dysplasia. So fibromuscular dysplasia is a cause of hypertension. We'll learn about hypertension. So this image is showing you fibromuscular dysplasia, string on bead appearance, and this is a characteristic feature of renal artery. Okay, another cause of hypertension is atherosclerosis. Okay, so let's look at this one. These are the different hyperlipidemic signs. The first one is showing you the plaque or nodules which are composed of lipid laden histiocytes. So lipid laden histiocytes, especially in the eyelids, this is xanthelism. Okay, so first image is showing you the lipid laden histiocytes in the skin. These are xanthomas. Okay, what is this image? This is xanthelisma. What is this one? This is lipid deposits in the tendon, that is tendinous xanthoma. This image is corneal arcus. Corneal arcus. Okay, corneal arcus. Now, this is how the atherosclerosis will proceed. This is how the atherosclerosis will proceed. You have the normal artery, then endothelial dysfunction, fatty streak formation, and fibrous plaque formation. So, look at this. So, you have this normal endothelium and the smooth muscle. Now, monocytes will come. Monocytes will, when the endothelium will be damaged, the monocytes will invade. Then you will get LDL laden macrophages, fatty streaks, foam cells. Smooth cells will come, fibrous plaque formation, and this is how there will be formation of fibrous plaque. This is how the fibrous plaque will be formed. Okay. So can you recognize this image? What is this? So first one is showing you the hyaline arteriosclerosis, and the next one is showing you hyperplastic arteriosclerosis. Okay. So hyaline arteriosclerosis and hyperplastic arteriosclerosis. What is arteriosclerosis? It is thickening of the arteries and the arterioles. So hyaline arteriosclerosis may there will be vessel wall thickening secondary to plasma protein leak into the subendothelium in hypertension or diabetes, and in hyperplastic arteriosclerosis there will be onion skinning in case of severe hypertension with proliferation, lot of proliferation of the smooth muscles is happening. Okay, so this image is showing you aneurysm, aortic aneurysm. What is aortic aneurysm? It is dilatation of the aorta, and it can cause abdominal pain, back pain, which is a sign of leaking. And let's look at this. So this is your thoracic aneurysms, these are your aortic aneurysm. So this is fusiform aneurysm and this is saccular aneurysm. So aortic aneurysm, right? So let's just revise the okay, this image is CT image of aortic aneurysm. This is CT image of aortic aneurysm. Okay, the CT image I have shown you of aortic aneurysm. So this is how, okay, what is this? This is abdominal aorta. Okay, so the abdominal aortic aneurysm can present as a palpable pulsatile abdominal mass. It can present as a palpable pulsatile abdominal mass. And what is the cause of abdominal aortic aneurysm? It is associated with transmural inflammation and extracellular matrix degradation. So palpable pulsatile abdominal mass is aneurysm. Okay, so let's move to this one, that is aortic dissection. This image is again showing you aortic dissection, so you can see this wall in between. So what is aortic dissection? The longitudinal intimal tearing, and there is formation of a false lumen. Okay, longitudinal intimal tearing, intimal layer, you have three layers na, you have three layers: tunica intima, tunica media, and adventitia. So intima, media, and adventitia. So when there is tearing of the intima layer, what will happen? The blood will leak in between the two layers, and there will be formation of aortic dissection. So longitudinal intimal tearing will result in false lumen formation. Aortic dissection is associated with hypertension, which is the most important risk factor. It is associated with bicuspid aortic valve. It is associated with Marfan syndrome. Okay, so see this Stanford classification or DBK classification for aortic dissection. So look at this image. So this is your type Stanford classification में आप type A और type B में divide करते हो. तो type A will involve your ascending aorta. Okay, so what is Stanford type A? Stanford type A means proximal aorta is involved. And Stanford type B means, what is Stanford type B? Distal aorta is involved. So proximal if involved, it is Stanford type A. Distal if involved, that is Stanford type B. Coming to DBK classification type 1, you can see ascending as well as descending involved. Type 2 में सिर्फ ascending and type 3 में सिर्फ descending. That one is type 1, 2, 3 is DBK classification for aortic dissection. Very important. ठीक है. Next image is showing you subclavian steal syndrome. Subclavian steal syndrome. So you can see that subclavian steal syndrome में आपका subclavian artery का यहाँ पे stenosis हो गया है. When there is subclavian artery stenosis, so what will happen? So the blood from the right vertebral artery will start coming to the left vertebral artery, and this is how it will supply the left subclavian artery. So if there is stenosis of the subclavian artery proximal to the origin of the vertebral artery, what will happen? What will happen? There will be reversal of blood flow in the ipsilateral vertebral artery, and when there will be reversal of blood flow in the ipsilateral vertebral artery, the cerebral perfusion will decrease. Cerebral perfusion will decrease, and that results in arm ischemia, pain, paresthesia, vertebrobasilar insufficiency, and more than 15 millimeter of mercury difference in systolic blood pressure between the arms associated with arteriosclerosis and Takayasu arthritis. Now, next image. This image is showing you the evolution of myocardial infarction. So this is the image after 0 to 24 hours. 0 to 24 hours. In myocardial infarction, the most common artery which is occluded is left anterior descending artery. Left anterior descending artery. So after 0 to 24 hours, just look at this. You get dark mottling, and the area of infarction will get pale with tetrazolium stain. Okay. So dark mottling. After 1 to 3 days, the area of infarction will show you hyperemia. And after 3 to 14 days, after 3 to 14 days, 3 to 14 days, on gross appearance, you will get hyperemic border and central yellow brown softening. And 2 weeks to several months, 2 weeks to several months, you will get gray white scar. So coming to the diagnosis of myocardial infarction, how do you diagnose myocardial infarction? Your diagnosis is based on ECG. So ECG is the gold standard for diagnosis of myocardial infarction. In the first 6 hours, do ECG. ECG is the gold standard. The cardiac troponin I levels will start to rise. The cardiac troponin I levels will start to rise, and they peak usually at 4 hours. They peak usually at 4 hours. Okay, 4 hours पे you can measure cardiac tropi levels. So 24 hours पे cardiac tropi levels peak करते हैं, and they start to rise. Cardiac tropi start to rise around 4 hours. They start to rise around 4 hours and peak at 24 hours. And cardiac tropi levels will be increased for 7 to 10 days. Cardiac tropi will be more specific than other protein markers. Next one is CKMB. CKMB increases after 6 to 12 hours. CKMB levels will increase after 6 to 12 hours. CKMB levels will start to increase after 6 to 12 hours. They will peak at 16 to 24 hours. And they are predominantly found inside the myocardium, but can also be released from the skeletal muscle. So tropi will start to rise at 24 hours. Tropi will start to rise at 4 hours and will peak at 24 hours. CKMV will start to rise at 6 to 12 hours and peak at 16 to 24 hours. And CKMB is also useful to diagnose reinfarction because levels will return normal after 48 hours. If you are getting high levels of CKMB, that will suggest reinfarction. In ECG, how you will localize MI? So on ECG, let's just see. These are the ECG leads. Okay. So anterior leads are V1, V2, V3, V4, V5, V6, V7, V8 and V9. These are all anterior leads. And these are the limb leads: AVL, lead 1, 2, AVF and 3. These are how the leads are placed. Okay. These are how the leads are placed. Okay, now let's understand which leads will diagnose what. So in order to diagnose anteroseptal MI, that is due to blockage of the left anterior descending artery, you will check the lead V1 and V2. ST elevation you will find in V1 and V2. In case of anteroapical MI, you will check V3 and V4. In case of anterolateral MI, you will check V5 and V6. If there is involvement of lateral circumflex artery or lateral infarct, please remember lead 1 and AVL. Inferior MI or right coronary artery infarcts in lead 2, 3, AVF. right coronary artery infarcts. PDA infarcts or posterior infarcts are seen in V7 to V9, or you can see ST depression in the V1 and V3 leads. Okay, so this is about ECG localization in MI. Now let's read about the tachycardias. So you have narrow complex tachycardia and you have wide complex tachycardia. Let's understand first the narrow complex tachycardias. Narrow complex tachycardias. So narrow complex tachycardia में 120 milliseconds से कम the tachycardia is there. The QRS is less than 120 milliseconds, and you can see the narrow complex tachycardias include your atrial fibrillation, include your multifocal atrial tachycardia, atrial flutter, then paroxysmal ventricular tachycardia. Now let's just identify the different graphs of tachycardia. So you can look atrial fibrillation में P waves will be absent, and the RR intervals are not equal, right? So irregular rate and rhythm with no discrete P waves is atrial fibrillation. So in atrial fibrillation, there will be arrhythmogenic activity that will originate from the automatic foci that is present near the pulmonary vein ostia in the left atrium. This one is multifocal atrial tachycardia. How will you diagnose multifocal atrial tachycardia? Multifocal atrial tachycardia is again characterized by irregular rate and rhythm with at least 3 distinct P wave morphologies. अगर आपको 3 P wave morphologies मिल रही हैं, 3 distinct P wave morphologies मिल रही हैं due to multiple ectopic foci in the atria, that is multifocal atrial tachycardia. In atrial flutter, you will get sawtooth pattern. Okay, so in atrial flutter, you will get sawtooth pattern or sawtooth appearance of the P waves, and the RR intervals are equal. Then you have paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. In paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, this pattern will be there. Okay, paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia. Paroxysmal supraventricular tachycardia, this pattern will be there. Next image is showing you Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So in Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome is most common type of ventricular pre-excitation syndrome. There is abnormal fast accessory conduction pathway formed from the atria to ventricle, that is known as bundle of Kent, and the bundle of Kent will bypass the rate slowing AV node, and the ventricles will partially depolarize earlier, and there will be characteristic delta wave that you will find in case of Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome. So delta wave with widened QRS complex, and shortened PR interval is a characteristic of WPW syndrome. Next one, look at this. This is what? This is ventricular tachycardia. Typically, the rhythm can go up to more than 100. This is ventricular tachycardia. What is this? This is torsades de pointes. That is also known as polymorphic ventricular tachycardia. So there is shifting of the sinusoidal waveforms, and this can progress to ventricular fibrillation. Torsades de pointes, also known as your characterized by long QT. So long QT, and it is caused by decrease in potassium, decrease in magnesium, and decrease in calcium. Okay, so torsades de pointes. Next one is ventricular fibrillation. Ventricular fibrillation mein you get disorganized rhythm with no identifiable waves. So this is ventricular fibrillation. Okay, what is this? This is sick sinus syndrome. ECG showing sick sinus syndrome. So in sick sinus syndrome, there is age-related degeneration of the SA node. ECG will show you bradycardia, sinus pauses, sinus arrest, and junctional escape beats. PR intervals are almost equal, you can see, right? So PR intervals are prolonged PR intervals. This is first degree AV block. In the next one, you can see there is gradual increase in the PR interval. Progressive lengthening of the PR interval comes under second degree AV block, and After progressive lengthening of the PR interval, you are getting a drop beat. So this is Wenckebach phenomena or second degree heart block में Mobitz 1. This one is Mobitz 2. Mobitz 2 कैसे identify करेंगे? The PR interval are equal and then characterized by a drop beat. So drop beats that are not preceded by change in PR interval, and this can progress to third degree heart block. And coming finally to third degree heart block में the P waves and QRS complexes are rhythmically dissociated. So the P waves and the QRS complexes. So you can see P waves अलग आ रही है, QRS complexes अलग आ रही है. So there is dissociation. There is dissociation between the P waves and the QRS complexes. The atria and the ventricles are beating independently. That is third degree heart block. This ECG is of premature atrial contraction. This ECG is of premature ventricular contraction. ठीक है? Okay. So this was about the different ECGs. This image is showing you a complication of MI, that is aneurysm, ventricular aneurysm and pseudoaneurysm. This is cardiac tamponade, right? So that is all for today's rapid revision lecture on CVS. I have covered majority of the topics. I was not able to, cover everything